Welcome. Tonight, we begin a long and gentle journey through time. As you listen, let your body grow heavy, your mind calm, and your thoughts drift away like snowflakes carried by a quiet wind. Imagine yourself beside a warm fire, the glow dancing on the walls, the air still and calm. Outside, the night is cold, the stars stretch endlessly, and the world is silent. We are going back, far back, to a time when the Earth was very different. A time when great sheets of ice covered much of the northern world. A time before cities, before kingdoms, before books or songs written down. We are returning to the Ice Age. The Ice Age. When you close your eyes, picture vast white plains stretching as far as the eye can see. Mountains crowned with snow that never melts. Glaciers slow and heavy, carving deep valleys over thousands of years. The air is crisp. The ground is frozen. But life is still here. Mammoths roam, their shaggy fur swaying in the cold winds. Saber-toothed cats prowl silently, their fangs glinting. Herds of bison move together, shaking the snow from their backs as they search for patches of grass. And scattered among these great animals are people. Small groups of families bound together, surviving in this frozen world. They are our ancestors. They carried fire. They carried memory. And soon, they would carry themselves across an entire new continent. For thousands of years, the Ice Age shaped everything. The oceans were lower than today. So low, in fact, that a great bridge of land connected what we now call Siberia to what we now call Alaska. A bridge not of wood or stone, but of earth itself. The Bering Land Bridge. This land was not a narrow crossing. It was vast, hundreds of miles wide. A cold steppe covered in grasses, shrubs, and patches of frozen tundra. Animals wandered across it, and slowly, carefully, so did people. But before we speak of the crossing, let us rest for a while in this frozen world. Let us walk slowly, gently, through the life of these ancient people. The people of the Ice Age were hunters, gatherers, wanderers. They moved with the seasons, always searching for food, water, and shelter. Their tools were simple but powerful. Sharp stones carefully shaped by hand. Wooden spears hardened in fire. Bones carved into needles to stitch together furs into clothing. At night, they built fires, much like the one you hear now. The flames cracked and hissed, sparks rising into the star-filled sky. The fire gave warmth but also light. It kept away predators. It gave families a circle of safety in the vast cold darkness. Imagine a small group gathered around such a fire. The air around them frozen, but inside the circle of firelight, there is warmth. Children wrapped in furs. Elders speaking softly, telling stories. The hunters repairing their tools, preparing for the next day. Life was not easy, but it was steady. The rhythm of survival gave them purpose. Far above them, the night sky was a canvas of endless stars. No cities blocked the view, no lights disturbed the darkness. The Milky Way stretched in full glory, brighter than we can ever see it today. Perhaps they looked at those stars just as we do now, and wondered what they meant. And all the while, the ice continued its slow work. Glaciers advanced, glaciers retreated. The world shifted little by little. In this shifting world, the first great journeys began. Journeys that would take these people farther than they had ever gone before. They did not know it then, but by following herds, by seeking new lands, they were about to discover a new continent. A place untouched by humans. A place where countless generations of their descendants would live. A place we now call the Americas. But let us not rush. The journey was not quick. It did not happen in a single season, or even a single lifetime. It unfolded slowly over centuries, step by step, camp by camp, fire by fire. Before they crossed the Bridge of Earth, these people lived long in the northern lands of Asia. They hunted reindeer. They tracked mammoths. They fished in rivers that cut through the ice. They learned the language of the land, of the wind, of the animals they followed. Their lives were shaped by patience. Every day was a test, every season a challenge, and yet they endured. As the fire beside you glows, imagine lying on the frozen ground in a shelter made of hides and branches. The wind whistles outside, but within, there is warmth. A family sleeps close together. Close your eyes and travel back, not hundreds, not thousands, but tens of thousands of years ago. The Earth looked very different. This was the time of the last Ice Age. Massive glaciers spread across the northern half of the world. Mountains were buried under ice. Oceans were locked away in frozen sheets. The air was dry, cold, and sharp, cutting through the skin like knives. But this was also the time when humans, our ancestors, were slowly learning how to adapt, how to fight back against nature, and how to explore. Imagine a small group of hunter-gatherers somewhere in Siberia. 20, maybe 30 men, women, and children huddle around a fire. The flames flicker, the sparks fly upward, and above them the northern sky glows with auroras, shimmering lights dancing across the frozen night. The people wear heavy furs stitched together from reindeer hides. Their faces are marked by smoke and hardship, but in their eyes burns determination. Why? Because they are survivors. It is during this frozen age that something remarkable appeared, a land bridge. Between Siberia and Alaska, the sea had retreated. The ocean levels were lower, exposing a massive stretch of land known as Beringia. This land bridge would become the highway of humanity's greatest migration. Now let's slow down and step into the daily life of these Ice Age people. How did they survive in such brutal conditions? The answer: their tools. In a world without metal, every tool was carved by hand. A hunter squats on the ground, striking a stone against another. With each blow, sharp flakes fly off. After hours of patient work, a sharp spear point takes shape. Another person scrapes an animal hide with a stone scraper, softening it into leather for warm boots. A woman uses a needle made of bone, threading sinew through fur to sew a hooded parka, warm enough to survive the frozen winds. Their tools may look primitive to us, but they were genius for their time. Every edge, every flake had a purpose. A stone knife could skin an animal. A scraper could shape wood. A spear point could bring down a mammoth. And fire was sacred. Carried from camp to camp, kept alive in embers wrapped in bark or dung, fire meant life. Around it, families cooked, crafted, and told stories. Firelight was their television, their community, their protection from the darkness. These tools, simple but powerful, gave humans the ability to do what no other creature could: control their world. It wasn't one single march. It wasn't one dramatic crossing. It was slow, patient, and unending, families following herds step by step, generation after generation. Imagine walking across Beringia. The land is flat, dry, and cold. Grasses stretch for miles, dotted with herds of bison, mammoths, and reindeer. Wolves howl in the distance. The air is crisp, and every step is heavy with snow. Parents carry infants wrapped in hides. Children trudge alongside, carrying small bundles. Hunters keep their spears ready, scanning for danger. At night, they build shelters of wood and hide, sometimes even using mammoth bones as frames. The migration may have lasted centuries. Some families stayed behind, others moved forward. But slowly, humanity poured into a new world, the Americas. And with each step, the old world was left behind. The Americas were unlike anything these people had ever seen. Imagine standing at the edge of a forest alive with strange sounds. Birds never seen before, towering trees, rivers teeming with salmon. And beyond the forests, wide plains where massive animals roamed. Woolly mammoths with curling tusks. Saber-toothed cats with fangs like daggers. Giant ground sloths, taller than a man. And the terrifying short-faced bear, faster and stronger than any predator humans had ever faced. For the first settlers, this was both paradise and peril. The land was full of food, but also full of danger. To survive, they hunted together. Dozens of hunters worked as a team, driving mammoths toward swamps or into ambushes. A single successful hunt could provide meat for weeks, hides for clothing, bones for tools, and fat for fire. But life wasn't only about survival. These people created art. On cave walls, they painted animals with charcoal and ochre. On bones, they carved symbols and figures. Perhaps these were spiritual acts, honoring the animals, praying for successful hunts. These first Americans were not just hunters. They were artists, storytellers, dreamers. Storms could wipe out camps. Illness could spread. A broken bone might mean death. Yet they endured. They developed rituals, burials with beads, tools, and ornaments, showing belief in an afterlife. They likely shared myths of spirits, animals, and ancestors. Around the fire, elders told stories of creation, of powerful beasts, of the first humans. And as generations passed, they spread farther and farther. Within a few thousand years, humans reached every corner of the Americas, from the icy Arctic to the tropical jungles of South America. The Ice Age world eventually ended. The glaciers melted, seas rose, and the land bridge disappeared under the waters of the Bering Strait. But by then, humans were everywhere. The descendants of those first travelers became the many indigenous peoples of the Americas, each carrying traditions, languages, and cultures shaped by the journey of their ancestors. And today, when we look back, we see not just survival, but triumph, the triumph of human resilience. So when you imagine the Bering Land Bridge, don't just think of land and ice. Think of families, tired, hungry, determined, walking across a frozen world, carrying fire in their hands and hope in their hearts. Think of children learning to hunt, mothers sewing fur coats, fathers chipping stone blades by firelight. Think of the courage it took to step into the unknown and to keep walking until the world itself changed. Because this is not just their story. This is our story, the story of humanity. Close your eyes and travel back thousands of years, to a time before maps, before written history, before modern cities. The land was rich with rivers, forests, and plains stretching as far as the eye could see. And here, people lived, not nomads entirely, but communities building something remarkable. These were the mound builders. From the Adena to the Hopewell, they shaped the earth itself into sacred monuments, burial sites, and ceremonial centers. The Adena culture, emerging around 1000 BCE in the Ohio River Valley, was among the first to raise massive mounds. Some mounds were simple, rounded hills where leaders were laid to rest with beads, copper ornaments, and carefully chosen grave goods. Other mounds were more elaborate, set in circles or geometric patterns, designed for ceremonies that connected the living with the spirit world. Trade was already expanding. Obsidian from distant mountains, shells from the Gulf of Mexico, and copper from the Great Lakes traveled along networks of rivers and footpaths. Every artifact carried meaning, not just material value, but spiritual significance. A shell necklace might represent a river spirit. A copper ornament might signify power or status within the community. By 200 BCE, the Hopewell culture rose in the same regions. They expanded the traditions of mound building into elaborate earthworks spanning miles. Squares, circles, octagons, and even representations of animals were carefully planned. Among the most famous is the Great Serpent Mound, a 1,300-foot-long earthwork. Coiling across the Ohio, perform rituals. Smoke from sacred fires rises into the sky. Music and chants fill the air. People honor their ancestors, celebrate the cycles of the sun and moon, and connect their lives to the cosmos. Trade expanded dramatically. Copper, mica, shells, and stone traveled hundreds of miles. Communities were linked in networks of exchange, not just of goods, but of ideas, stories, and spiritual practices. In this world, Earth itself was sacred, each mound a monument to life, death, and the cycles that sustained humanity. Here, thousands of years before European contact, civilizations were emerging that would leave a legacy still visible today. Thousands of years ago, far to the southwest, in what is now New Mexico, Arizona, and Colorado, a new civilization was emerging, the ancestral Puebloans, also known as the Pueblo peoples. Unlike the mound builders of the East, the Pueblo peoples shaped stone and clay into their homes, towns, and ceremonial centers. They carved dwellings into cliffs and built great houses that would endure for centuries. Among the most remarkable of these is Chaco Canyon, a center of culture, politics, and spirituality from approximately 900 to 1150 CE. Chaco Canyon was not just a village, it was a city. Some of its great houses, such as Pueblo Bonito, contained over 600 rooms, multiple stories, and complex kivas, circular ceremonial chambers used for spiritual rituals and gatherings. Roads radiated from the canyon, connecting distant communities across hundreds of miles, a sign of sophisticated planning and social organization. Farming was the backbone of Pueblo life. Maize, beans, and squash, the three sisters, were carefully cultivated on terraces and in fields irrigated by seasonal streams. Water management was crucial in the arid desert environment, and the Pueblo peoples engineered canals and terraces to conserve and distribute water efficiently. Trade was extensive. Obsidian, turquoise, pottery, and shells traveled long distances. Turquoise from the mountains became sacred ornaments. Shells from coastal regions were exchanged for stones and pottery. These trade networks created connections between communities, spreading not just goods but knowledge, culture, and spirituality. Spiritual life was deeply integrated into daily existence. The kiva, a central ceremonial space, was often dug underground to symbolize connection to the underworld, a sacred space where people could communicate with ancestors and spirits. Rituals involved dance, music, prayer, and offerings to ensure harmony with nature and the cycles of the sun and moon. The alignment of Chaco's great houses with celestial events reveals a sophisticated understanding of astronomy. Buildings were positioned to mark solstices and equinoxes, connecting architecture, farming, and spirituality. Life in the canyon was a delicate balance between survival, art, religion, and community organization. Children learned early how to farm, craft, and observe the rhythms of nature. Adults managed fields, ceremonies, and construction, while elders passed down knowledge, stories, and traditions. Social cohesion was maintained through shared rituals, collective labor, and reverence for ancestors. Despite harsh deserts and unpredictable weather, the Pueblo peoples thrived for centuries. Their achievements, stone dwellings, complex road systems, ceremonial centers, and sophisticated farming, remain a testament to human ingenuity, resilience, and devotion to community and spirituality. Travel north from Chaco Canyon into the rugged canyons and plateaus of modern-day Colorado. Here lies Mesa Verde, home to the ancestral Puebloans from around 600 to 1300 CE. Unlike the large pueblos of Chaco Canyon, the cliff dwellings of Mesa Verde were built into alcoves carved naturally into canyon walls. These dwellings were masterpieces of engineering, constructed from sandstone blocks and mud mortar, rising several stories high. They offered protection from the elements, safety from enemies, and a constant connection to the surrounding landscape. Imagine walking along narrow. Families cooked, slept, and raised children. Others are kivas, ceremonial chambers used for rituals, prayer, and teaching. The air smells of smoke and clay, mingled with the scent of maize roasting over a fire. Farming remained central to life. The Mesa Verde people cultivated corn, beans, and squash on the mesa tops. Terraces and check dams helped capture rainwater, preventing erosion and ensuring crops could survive the dry season. Farmers worked tirelessly, while others collected wild plants, hunted deer, rabbits, and birds, and crafted tools and utensils from stone, bone, and wood. Daily life involved intricate cooperation. Families shared labor and knowledge. Women ground corn using manos and metates, while children learned farming techniques, pottery making, and weaving. Men hunted and constructed dwellings, ensuring that the community remained strong and resilient. Trade continued to connect Mesa Verde with distant communities. Pottery styles, turquoise, and ceremonial items show links to Chaco Canyon, the Southwest, and even as far as Mesoamerica. These exchanges were more than commerce. They were communication, storytelling, and cultural connection. Spiritual life was interwoven with every action. Kivas symbolized the underworld, and rituals celebrated the cycles of planting and harvest. Ceremonies involved song, dance, and offerings to ensure balance and harmony between humans and nature. Stars and celestial events guided planting schedules and spiritual observances. By 1300 CE, environmental stress, including drought and resource depletion, forced the inhabitants to leave these cliff dwellings. Yet the skill, creativity, and spiritual depth of the Mesa Verde people lived on in their descendants, influencing modern Pueblo communities. Mesa Verde stands today as a testament to human adaptation, architectural genius, and the enduring power of community, faith, and survival in a harsh landscape. Move east from the southwest to the fertile floodplains of the Mississippi River. Here, around 800 CE, a powerful culture rose, the Mississippian culture. Its largest and most impressive city was Cahokia, located near modern-day St. Louis. Cahokia was the largest pre-Columbian city north of Mexico. At its peak, it may have housed tens of thousands of people, a population larger than London at the same time. The city was meticulously planned, with wide plazas, ceremonial mounds, residential areas, and defensive palisades. The most famous structure is Monk's Mound, a massive earthwork standing over 100 feet tall and covering more than 14 acres. On its summit, wooden structures served as temples and the homes of elites. From here, leaders observed both the city below and the surrounding river valleys, symbolizing both spiritual and political authority. Daily life in Cahokia was complex and organized. Farmers cultivated maize, beans, and squash, providing a stable food supply. Women processed food, crafted pottery, wove textiles, and participated in ceremonial life. Men hunted, fished, built mounds, and managed community defense. Children learned skills through observation and practice, growing up steeped in the knowledge and traditions of their people. Trade and communication were vital. Cahokia was at the center of a vast trade network, stretching from the Great Lakes to the Gulf Coast. Obsidian, copper, shells, and exotic stones flowed into the city, while Cahokia's artisans produced finely crafted pottery, copper ornaments, and ceremonial objects. Religion permeated daily life. Mississippian society was deeply spiritual, centered on the sun, sky, and sacred rivers. Mounds and plazas were aligned with celestial events like solstices and equinoxes. Rituals involved dance, music, offerings, and sometimes ceremonial feasts, all reinforcing social hierarchy and the connection between humans and the divine. Cahokia's urban environment also featured social stratification. Elites lived on or near mounds, controlling politics, religion, and trade. Commoners resided in surrounding neighborhoods, contributing labor, food, and craft goods. Despite hierarchy, communal participation in ceremonies and construction projects strengthened social bonds. The city thrived for centuries, but by 1400 CE, factors such as resource depletion, overpopulation, and political unrest contributed to its decline. Yet the legacy of Cahokia and the Mississippians endures, influencing later indigenous cultures and leaving behind monumental earthworks still visible today. Cahokia stands as a reminder that North America, long before European contact, hosted complex, thriving urban centers built on ingenuity, community, and a profound connection to the natural and spiritual worlds. Step into the daily life of a Mississippian city like Cahokia. The streets are alive with activity, sounds of children playing, artisans crafting pottery, and traders calling out across the plazas. Farming was the lifeblood of these communities. Maize fields stretched across river valleys, carefully tended with knowledge passed down through generations. Beans and squash grew alongside the corn, creating balanced nutrition and enriching the soil. Farmers built raised beds and simple irrigation systems to cope with seasonal floods and droughts. Food was not just for survival, it shaped culture. Seasonal festivals celebrated planting and harvest, bringing the community together for feasts, music, and ceremonial rituals. Women ground corn using stone tools, prepared meals in clay pots, and baked bread over open fires. Men hunted deer, fished in the rivers, and trapped smaller game to supplement the diet. Children learned by doing. Boys practiced hunting and fishing under the guidance of elders, while girls learned weaving, pottery, and food preparation. Skills were shared not only for survival, but to strengthen the social fabric of the community. Trade networks connected Mississippian cities across hundreds of miles. Artifacts found in Cahokia show materials from distant lands. Copper from the Great Lakes, marine shells from the Gulf of Mexico, obsidian from the Rocky Mountains, stone tools from Appalachian quarries. These items weren't just for practical use. They were symbols of status, spiritual significance, and cultural connection. Trade routes were veins through which ideas, religious practices, and artistic styles flowed. Social gatherings were often linked to trade and spiritual ceremonies. Seasonal fairs and markets allowed communities to exchange goods, celebrate, and strengthen alliances. Rituals might accompany every exchange, honoring spirits, ancestors, or the natural forces that sustained life. The Mississippians also had specialized artisans, potters, bead makers, and copper workers. Their work reflected both utility and spiritual meaning. Elaborate designs depicted animals, celestial symbols, and mythological figures. Every object told a story. Life in Mississippian cities was a balance between labor, spirituality, community, and trade. Through farming, they sustained cities. Through trade, they connected continents. And through rituals, they preserved the spirit of their culture. The Mississippian people were not just surviving. They were thriving, building a civilization rooted in cooperation, innovation, and deep respect for the natural and spiritual worlds. In the heart of the Mississippian cities, spirituality was everywhere. Every mound, plaza, and house was imbued with meaning, connecting people to the earth, sky, and their ancestors. The sun held central importance. Solar cycles dictated planting and harvest, and solar symbols appear through Mississippian art. The sun deity was often represented as a powerful figure, guiding life and ensuring fertility of the fields. The underworld and the sky world were also significant. People believed that balance between these realms ensured harmony in their lives. Mounds were often symbolic mountains, connecting the living with spiritual planes. Temples atop mounds acted as sacred spaces where leaders communicated with the divine. Ceremonies were vivid and communal. Drums, rattles, and flutes filled the air with rhythm. Dancers adorned in feathers, animal skins, and painted designs performed choreographed movements. Offerings of food, copper, shells, and clay figures were made to spirits, ancestors, and animals. The falcon warrior was a recurring figure in Mississippian iconography, representing courage, authority, and a connection between the human and spirit worlds. Masks, carvings, and engraved shells depicted this and other symbolic creatures. Rituals were not limited to elites. Everyone participated, children, adults, and elders. ensuring that knowledge and spiritual practices were passed down. Ceremonies marked major life events: births, marriages, deaths, as well as seasonal transitions like solstices and equinoxes. Mounds also played a ceremonial role beyond the city center. Some mounds were burial sites, honoring important leaders or spiritual figures. Grave goods, beads, tools, and ornaments were placed with care, reflecting status, spiritual belief, and connection to the ancestors. In the plazas, festivals combined spirituality with social life. People celebrated harvests, honored the sun, and reinforced community bonds. These gatherings strengthened loyalty, shared identity, and the social hierarchy that sustained the city. The Mississippian worldview was holistic. Every activity, farming, trade, art, and governance, was intertwined with spiritual purpose. To live well was to maintain balance between humans, nature, and the divine. Through their ceremonies and beliefs, the Mississippians created a society that was not only advanced in agriculture and trade, but profoundly connected to the cosmos, the land, and each other. Their legacy of faith and ritual survives in the stories, artifacts, and mounds scattered across North America. High in the cliffs and mesas of the Southwest, the Pueblo peoples lived in harmony with the desert landscape. But life was not only about farming, building, or surviving, it was deeply spiritual. At the heart of their spiritual practice was the kiva, a circular, often subterranean chamber used for ceremonies, teaching, and communication with the spirit world. Kivas were considered sacred spaces, symbolizing the womb of the earth and connecting the people to both ancestors and supernatural forces. Ceremonies inside the kiva were complex and symbolic. Fires burned, smoke rising like prayers to the sky. Drums and rattles kept rhythm, guiding chants and songs passed down through generations. Men, women, and sometimes children participated, learning the rituals and sacred knowledge necessary to maintain balance and harmony in the community. Seasonal ceremonies marked the cycles of planting and harvest. The solstice and equinox were times of celebration, prayer, and reflection. Maize, beans, and squash were offered as sacred gifts to ensure the fertility of the land. These rituals reinforced the connection between daily survival and cosmic order. Dance and masks played vital roles. Participants wore costumes representing animals, spirits, or mythological figures, embodying their stories and beliefs. Movements were precise, each step and gesture carrying symbolic meaning, teaching lessons of morality, respect, and harmony with nature. Pueblo people also honored ancestors through ceremonies. Offerings were made in kivas, in homes, or at sacred sites, ensuring that the wisdom and protection of previous generations remained present. These rituals reinforced family, community bonds, and cultural continuity. Art was intertwined with spiritual, and spiritual exchange went hand in hand. Turquoise, shells, and other sacred materials arrived from distant lands, not just as commodities but as instruments of ceremony, symbols of status, and gifts to the divine. Through their kivas, ceremonies, and daily practices, the Pueblo peoples maintained a delicate balance, honoring the earth, sky, ancestors, and each other. Their spiritual life was a living thread connecting community, environment, and the cosmos. Even today, modern Pueblo communities continue these traditions, preserving the ceremonies, songs, and sacred practices of their ancestors, a testament to resilience, reverence, and cultural continuity. Long before European ships crossed the Atlantic, the peoples of North America were already connected across vast distances through intricate trade networks. Goods, ideas, and spiritual practices flowed between the Southwest and the Mississippi River Valley, linking the Pueblo and Mississippian cultures in remarkable ways. The Pueblo peoples exchanged turquoise, pottery, woven textiles, and ceremonial items with distant communities. They received exotic shells, copper, obsidian, and other rare materials in return. These materials were not just for daily use. They were symbols of status, spiritual tools, and sacred gifts. Similarly, the Mississippian culture traded their finely crafted pottery, copper ornaments, and ceremonial artifacts. The exchange of goods was often accompanied by the exchange of ideas, rituals, and cultural practices, creating a shared symbolic language across regions. Trade routes followed rivers, footpaths, and deserts. The Mississippi River acted as a major artery, connecting Cahokia to smaller towns, farms, and mound centers. From there, goods could travel hundreds of miles north, south, east, or west. In the Southwest, roads radiated from Chaco Canyon, linking pueblos and ceremonial sites across hundreds of miles. Through these exchanges, communities learned from each other. Artistic styles influenced pottery and textiles. Ceremonial practices spread, adapting to local beliefs and landscapes. Knowledge of agriculture, irrigation, and resource management traveled along these routes, enhancing survival and prosperity bond. Trade was also a social and spiritual activity. Special ceremonies marked the exchange of sacred objects. Gifts were offered to deities, ancestors, or spirits to ensure good fortune, fertility, or protection. Trade fairs became gatherings of storytelling, celebration, and alliance building between distant communities. Beyond material goods, trade networks created cultural cohesion. Symbols, myths, and artistic motifs were shared and adapted across regions. Communities developed mutual understanding, alliances, and respect through these exchanges, strengthening both social and spiritual bond. The interconnectedness of the Pueblo and Mississippian peoples illustrates a sophisticated pre-Columbian network spanning hundreds of miles. These networks were more than commerce. They were the lifeblood of culture, spirituality, and civilization itself. Through trade, knowledge, and ceremonial, imagine walking through a Mississippian city like Cahokia at its peak. Wide plazas stretch before you, flanked by mounds, homes, and ceremonial buildings. People move purposefully, farmers tending fields, artisans crafting pottery and copper ornaments, children playing near the riverbanks. At the center of this urban landscape stands Monk's Mound, the city's largest and most symbolic structure. Atop the mound live the elites, leaders who wield both spiritual and political authority. From this vantage point, they oversee the city and its surroundings, guiding decisions on trade, agriculture, and ceremonial life. Social hierarchy in Mississippian cities was clearly defined. The chief or ruler held authority over major religious ceremonies and political governance. Priests and spiritual leaders advised the chief, conducting rituals and ensuring cosmic balance. Artisans and skilled workers were respected for their contributions, while commoners provided labor, farming, and services essential to city life. Housing reflected status. Elites lived on mounds or in larger homes near the city center. Commoners' houses were smaller, located in surrounding neighborhoods. Yet despite hierarchy, communal participation in festivals, construction, and religious ceremonies reinforced social cohesion. Ceremonial life was central to maintaining authority. Seasonal festivals, solstice and equinox rituals, and rites of passage reinforced the connection between the ruler, the community, and the divine. Participation in these events symbolized loyalty, reinforced social norms, and reminded citizens of their shared responsibilities. Trade and tribute also played a role in hierarchy. Elites controlled access to exotic goods like copper, marine shells, and ceremonial ornaments, distributing them strategically to maintain influence and alliances. These objects symbolized power and spiritual connection, reinforcing the social order. Daily life intertwined with hierarchy. Farmers and laborers worked to sustain the city. Artisans produced goods that reflected spiritual beliefs. Children learned their roles through observation and practice. Every activity, agriculture, craftsmanship, ceremony, was linked to the social structure. The Mississippian model of cities demonstrates that pre-Columbian North America hosted complex urban civilizations with sophisticated governance, labor organization, and social stratification. Power was balanced by spirituality, community participation, and the need for cooperation, creating resilient societies capable of thriving for centuries. Cahokia and its sister cities remain as evidence that social hierarchy, urban planning, and cultural complexity were deeply embedded in these early civilizations, long before European arrival. High on the mesas and cliffs of the Southwest, life for the Pueblo peoples revolved around community, family, and survival. But it was more than mere survival. It was a life rich with tradition, cooperation, and spiritual meaning. The Pueblo family was the foundation of society. Households often consisted of extended families living together in interconnected rooms of stone and adobe structures. Each family had its roles. Men hunted and constructed buildings, while women farmed, prepared food, wove textiles, and cared for children. Children were taught from a young age to observe, learn, and contribute to daily life. Farming dominated daily activities. Maize, beans, and squash, the three sisters, were cultivated with careful attention to soil, water, and seasonality. Terraces, canals, and check dams allowed for efficient water use in the arid environment. Families worked together to plant, maintain, and harvest crops, ensuring enough food to sustain the community through the year. Pottery and crafts were essential. Women molded clay into pots, bowls, and storage vessels, often decorated with symbolic designs. Weaving created clothing, mats, and ceremonial items. These crafts were not only practical but carried cultural and spiritual significance, linking everyday life to tradition and belief. The Pueblo's social structure was deeply cooperative. Decisions were often made collectively, with elders and spiritual leaders guiding the community. Tasks like constructing new dwellings, building terraces, or preparing for ceremonies involved the labor and coordination of many families. Spiritual life was tightly woven into daily routines. Ceremonies in kivas, seasonal festivals, and offerings to ancestors ensured harmony between humans, nature, and the spiritual realm. Children grew up participating in rituals, learning the dances, songs, and prayers that sustained cultural continuity. Trade also influenced daily life. Turquoise, shells, and other goods arrived from distant lands, providing materials for ornaments, ceremonial use, and artistic expression. In return, Pueblo peoples exchanged pottery, woven textiles, and other locally made goods with neighboring communities. Even leisure and storytelling were important. Children played games that taught survival skills, elders told stories that conveyed history and morality, and families gathered to celebrate milestones, creating bonds that strengthened both social and spiritual cohesion. Even leisure and storytelling were important. Children played games that taught survival skills, elders told stories that conveyed history and morality, and families gathered to celebrate milestones, creating bonds that strengthened both social and spiritual cohesion. Life among the Pueblo peoples was a delicate balance of survival, work, learning, and spirituality. Each activity, farming, crafting, trading, or participating in ceremonies, reinforced. For thousands of years, before the arrival of Europeans, the lands of North America were home to hundreds of native nations. Each had its own language, its own customs, its own spiritual traditions, and a sacred connection to the earth. The forests, rivers, plains, and mountains were not just resources. They were living relatives, spirits woven into daily life. Land was not owned. It was shared, honored, and passed down through generations as part of a greater balance. But in the late 15th century, everything began to change. When Europeans first arrived on the Atlantic shores, history itself shifted. At first, the encounters were small, trading goods, exchanging languages, marveling at one another. But soon, trade turned into conquest, curiosity became control, and the push for land became relentless. From the very beginning, native peoples understood that these new arrivals brought danger as well as opportunity. Some nations engaged in trade with the French, Dutch, or English. They exchanged furs for metal tools, guns, and cloth. But the cost of these alliances was high, for with trade came dependency, and with dependency came pressure. When colonists began demanding more land, native resistance began to grow. Wars broke out in the 1600s, such as the Powhatan Wars in Virginia, where native confederacies tried to hold back English settlers who expanded beyond agreed boundaries. In New England, King Philip's War of 1675, led by Medicum, known to the English as King Philip, was one of the most devastating conflicts of its time. Medicum united several native nations to resist colonial expansion. For over a year, native warriors struck towns, burned settlements, and fought back against overwhelming odds. Although the war ended in tragedy for the natives, it showed a truth that would echo for centuries. Native nations would not surrender without resistance. The roots of these conflicts lay deeper than territory. They were clashes of worldview. Europeans saw land as something to be divided, sold, and owned. Native peoples saw land as sacred, shared by all, with no concept of private property. Europeans believed in a hierarchy of control: king over subject, master over land, man over nature. Native societies believed in balance and responsibility. This cultural divide made peaceful coexistence nearly impossible. Even when treaties were signed, settlers often ignored them, pushing further into native homelands. Each broken promise left scars that still remain today. But resistance was only one part of the story. Native nations also adapted, learning new technologies, forming new alliances, and finding ways to survive in an unfamiliar world. Even in these early centuries, native leaders showed remarkable vision. Some saw that survival meant negotiation. Others saw that only war could protect their people. And in both cases, their actions laid the foundation for centuries of struggle, endurance, and resilience. One of the most renowned figures in Native resistance was Tecumseh, the Shawnee leader. Born in the Ohio Valley in 1768, Tecumseh grew up witnessing the relentless encroachment of settlers on Native lands. He believed that only a united Native front could stop the tide of expansion. His dream was bold, a pan-Indian confederacy stretching from the Great Lakes to the Gulf of Mexico. Tecumseh traveled far and wide, speaking to hundreds of tribes, urging them to set aside historic rivalries and unite under a common purpose. His message was clear: alone we may fall. Together we stand. This vision of unity was revolutionary, not just militarily, but culturally. Tecumseh reminded tribes of shared ancestry, sacred lands, and spiritual traditions. For a time, his charisma drew thousands to the cause, showing that hope could flourish even in the face of overwhelming colonial power. Long before Tecumseh, another example of Native unity had already shaped history. The Iroquois Confederacy, also known as the Haudenosaunee. Formed centuries earlier in the Northeast, the Iroquois Confederacy united 6 nations: the Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, Cayuga, Seneca, and later the Tuscarora, under a sophisticated system of governance. Their council meetings, decision-making processes, and treaties showed remarkable political sophistication, earning them both respect and fear from European colonists. During the French and Indian War, the Iroquois strategically allied with the British, understanding that a balance of power could protect their lands. They demonstrated that survival often depended on skillful diplomacy as much as on the battlefield. While Tecumseh and the Iroquois Confederacy are often remembered, countless other leaders shaped Native resistance. The Hunkpapa Lakota chief became legendary for his role in resisting U.S. expansion in the Great Plains. His spiritual leadership inspired warriors at the Battle of Little Bighorn, one of the few decisive Native victories against the U.S. Army. The Apache warrior became synonymous with defiance in the Southwest, leading his people through decades of raids and escapes in rugged, unforgiving terrain. These leaders understood that resistance was not just physical, it was mental, spiritual, and cultural. They preserved the identity and dignity of their people, even when their lands were shrinking. Survival often depended on forming alliances, not just among Native nations, but sometimes with European powers. The French often allied with tribes like the Algonquin and Huron in the Great Lakes region, providing weapons and trade in exchange for military support. The British, seeking to counter French influence, cultivated relationships with the Iroquois and Cherokee. These alliances were fragile. Betrayals were common, and shifting politics could turn friends into foes overnight. Yet, Native leaders used these alliances strategically, knowing that in the struggle to preserve land and culture, every partnership mattered. As European settlers expanded westward, the physical and cultural landscapes of Native life changed dramatically. Forests were cleared, rivers were dammed, and vast herds of buffalo that had sustained countless generations were decimated. For Native nations, survival was no longer just about resisting armies. It was about adapting to a world that was rapidly disappearing beneath their feet. By the late 18th and early 19th centuries, the United States had begun an aggressive push westward. Treaties were signed, often under duress or misunderstanding, promising peace and protection. But settlers rarely honored them. Native lands were taken for farms, roads, and towns. Sacred sites were desecrated. Traditional hunting and fishing grounds were destroyed. The environment that had nurtured Native societies for centuries was being reshaped, often violently, into European-style settlements. The Mississippi River Basin, once a lifeline for many nations, became a corridor for trade and conquest. Forests that had provided shelter, medicine, and food were cut down. Grasslands that had sustained buffalo herds were overrun with cattle and crops. Once a lifeline for many nations, became a corridor for trade and conquest. Forests that had provided shelter, medicine, and food were cut down. Grasslands that had sustained buffalo herds were overrun with cattle and crops. In the 1830s, under the Indian Removal Act, 5 major nations, the Cherokee, Creek, Chickasaw, Choctaw, and Seminole, were forced to leave their ancestral homelands in the southeastern United States and travel hundreds of miles west to what is now Oklahoma. The journey was treacherous. Thousands died from exposure, disease, and exhaustion. Families were torn apart. Communities were uprooted. Yet, even in the face of unimaginable suffering, native peoples maintained their traditions, telling stories, preserving their languages, and carrying their sacred practices with them. Relocation was only one of many challenges. New lands often had unfamiliar climates, scarce resources, and conflicts with other tribes who had already been displaced. Native nations had to adapt quickly, learning new agricultural techniques for different soils, building settlements suited to unfamiliar terrains, negotiating new alliances for protection and trade. Adaptation became a crucial tool for survival. Even when land and resources were taken, native peoples preserved their culture, spirituality, and social structures. The landscape itself was changing in ways that affected daily life. Rivers were diverted, wetlands drained, and forests cut for timber. Wildlife that native peoples depended on, bison, deer, elk, was hunted to near extinction. Yet, resilience persisted. Communities learned to track and manage the remaining game, cultivate new crops, and sustain themselves in smaller, more confined areas. They became masters of adaptation, showing that survival was not just a matter of physical endurance, but of ingenuity and knowledge. This period of history illustrates the profound connection between people and the land. When the land was taken, everything changed: culture, community, and survival itself. Yet native nations endured. They adapted, rebuilt, and preserved their identities even in exile. Their resilience is a testament to a spirit that refuses to be broken. The resilience of native peoples lies as much in their traditions as in their battles. While external forces attempted to erase their cultures, they carried forward ceremonies, songs, and stories, ensuring that their heritage would endure. Language is more than communication. It is memory, history, and worldview. For many native nations, preserving their language became a sacred act of survival. Under the leadership of Sequoyah, developed a written syllabary in the early 19th century. This allowed them to record laws, stories, and knowledge in their own words, asserting sovereignty in a world that sought to silence them. Other nations used oral traditions, passing down histories, genealogies, and spiritual teachings through songs and storytelling. Elders became living libraries, keeping the past alive for future generations. Through language, native peoples maintained their connection to land, community, and ancestors, even when physically uprooted. Spiritual practices played a central role in survival. Ceremonies, whether seasonal, life cycle, or healing rituals, were expressions of resilience. They strengthened community bonds and reinforced values that had sustained nations for centuries. The sun dance among plains tribes celebrated renewal, unity, and endurance. The green corn ceremony in the southeast marked gratitude for harvest and balance with nature. Vision quests and storytelling journeys helped young people understand their role in the world, their responsibilities, and the sacred nature of the land. Even when forced onto reservations or removed from their homelands, native peoples adapted ceremonies to new locations, preserving their spiritual lifelines. Art and music became powerful tools of resistance and identity. Beadwork, quillwork, and pottery were not mere decoration. They carried stories, tribal symbols, and ancestral wisdom. Drumming, chanting, and singing preserved histories that colonial records could not capture. Oral tradition ensured that knowledge of survival, medicine, and diplomacy was passed down generation after generation. Through these practices, native peoples resisted cultural erasure, keeping their identity vibrant and alive. As European-style schools and missionaries attempted to suppress native culture, communities found creative ways to preserve their heritage. Some families